Hello, viewer, and welcome to Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And here on Spotlight, we are always doing our very best to bring to you discussions that we believe are helpful to us, especially as Christians, as we live the Christian life in the community. And of course, in the community, there's so many things that happen, things of great concern. And one of the things that is of great concern in the contemporary society is the rates of suicide in the country, a very huge reason for concern. And on Spotlight, this edition, we're going to be talking about suicide. And again, we want to appreciate the Bible Society of Kenya for bringing to us a great series. And today we're going to be engaging suicide, and we're happy to be joined by two ministers. That is Reverend Dedan Kamau and also Reverend Jeremiah Kinyanjui. Welcome to Spotlight one more time.
Thank you.
And they are trauma healing facilitators, and therefore they'll be giving us insight about understanding different angles of suicide. And do engage us on 22232. That's our text message line. As we always say, you are part of this discussion. Now, let's just start out with this conversation about suicide in life. And because you both are theologians, starting with you, Reverend Jeremiah, I mean, how does scriptures treat suicide?
Thank you so much, Reverend. Our viewers, we are so glad to be here again, and we are excited even to have this discussion about suicide. And yes, is suicide in the Bible? Affirmative, yes. Suicide is in the Bible. And tonight we would be looking at even some people who committed suicide. They are in the scriptures. So yes, it happened so, and yes, the Bible does not advocate for people to take this direction, but apparently it happened in the Bible itself. Characters took that direction, and even in the days of our lives, suicide is still a big issue world over, not only in our country, but across the globe.
Okay.
And we are so happy that tonight we are here, not because suicide is such a cup of tea really, but because it is a reality. We have to address it.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing. And
It
you know, when
is.
you talk about people in the Bible who committed suicide, of course would want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Even maybe cite some of those characters and see how, you know, God treats them, or that whole aspect of suicide in the scriptures. Now, as we talk about suicide, Reverend Dedan, maybe you can describe to us what amounts to suicide.
Okay, thank you very much, Reverend. I'm so happy to be back here after quite some time. I was here when we were discussing about why people suffer. And it's good that I'm here today talking about suicide. And you've asked what it is. Suicide is when a person willfully takes their own life. That is suicide. You know, you didn't die out of natural causes, maybe because of sickness or something, but you took it upon yourself to remove your life. So that is what we describe as suicide. And of course, we'll be talking about why do people do that?
Yeah. And I think that's just a natural place to transit to.
Yeah.
You know, why people commit suicide, Reverend Jeremiah.
For sure, there are quite a number of reasons why people commit suicide. And they vary from all manner of causes. And you find that there are people who commit suicide simply because they have reached a place where they have totally lost all hope. So I would say, in a big way, hopelessness and helplessness contribute highly to individuals considering committing suicide. We got issues to do with feeling like they are no longer people of value, that they are not contributing anything to the society, and to their family, and even to their own spaces, and they feel, I don't need to be around. There is no need of me of being here. Then there is the whole issue of whereby someone reaches a place of being overwhelmed. They totally get overwhelmed by issues of life. And these issues of life cut across. But we are talking about difficult issues of life. And they overwhelm someone, and an individual reaches a place and they feel, my only way out of this overwhelming state I am in is suicide. And therefore, Reverend, there are so many reasons. If we were to start, pinpointing, the list is long. But I would say generally, hopelessness, helplessness, and that feeling of worthlessness, and of course, being overwhelmed. Yeah.
And when you talk about hopelessness and being overwhelmed, one begins to think whether, because everyone does get to a place where they get hopeless, and people have different coping mechanisms. Would you then say, Reverend Dedan, that there could be some people who are, by virtue of their psychological makeup, are more predisposed to committing suicide?
Yeah, I would agree with that there are some people who are more predisposed to committing suicide than others. Although, life challenges, it's like they come to all of us. All of us face life challenges, and we might even feel like taking our own lives. A person maybe who has been in a family that has had that happening is very much predisposed, and there is a tendency of them moving towards committing suicide. Also, there are some personalities that are also more prone to that. People who are very emotional, people, some personalities that are very, moody and all that. So, yeah, I agree with you. There are some people who might who might not be able to withstand that urge or feeling of committing suicide. Yeah.
Okay, and that's a very important thing to look into, because looking into your family history and seeing those tendencies, then you as a person should be able to maybe prepare yourself in a way that you cushion yourself from that recurrence of suicide in the family. Now, I want to ask you, Reverend Jeremy, I mean, if you are from a family, for instance, that you see there are several suicides, they're just expressly in your line, and here you are, you're anxious about it, and you sometimes get into your hopelessness. I mean, how are you supposed to cushion yourself, or how are you supposed to kind of circumvent that kind of history?
Yeah, totally. I do agree. That is a possibility. And therefore, it's important for this individual who find themselves in such a family. And it's true, they can tell this has been a trend. First of all, it's important for them to establish what causes this, what makes this individual take their own lives. Could there be a reason that really is like common, something that follows the family? And then this person, after they establish what is the reason for the family members to commit suicide, they need to then deal with the reason that makes the family members take their own lives. And definitely, I would encourage such a person that just because that has been happening in the family, it doesn't mean that they are also bound to follow suit. They can actually establish the reason why it happens, and then how they can deal with that.
And look for support.
Okay. And this is why we are here this evening, to create awareness and to let such an individual know that there is a way out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think let's stay with this a little bit, Reverend Dedan, because there are also accounts that compare men and women when it comes to their attempts at suicide. And it said that men attempt more and succeed more. And comment about that.
Yeah, it's true. Those are statistics. And, statistics tell us that in any 1 year, about more than 700,000 people commit suicide, worldwide. So, and the statistics go and say that more women than men attempt suicide. But as you have rightly said, it is more men who end up committing suicide than women. So I've tried to think about it. I think it is just the way, we are made. Men don't have avenues, ways of expressing themselves and, letting those things go out. When you look at women, they talk a lot and they're able to talk it out. And so that tends to, lower it. And of course, society looks at women a little bit with more compassion than men. Because if, let's say, you are committing suicide because of economics hardships. As a man, it's so hard for you to go borrowing. But a woman, that will just tend to just naturally flow. So there are those dynamics about how society views men and women, and also about how we ourselves are, our ego, our pride, we don't want to talk about things. And so I think that tends to affect men more. Yes.
Okay.
And of course, even the responsibilities of men are a lot. We have a lot of burdens, financial. And, financial issues also range quite highly on the causes of suicide.
Yeah. So here you say that because of the burden that men face, then they should also just know that they need to find spaces of constructive release.
Yes.
So that they can deal with the pressure in different ways. And there are also, Reverend Jeremy, religious or spiritually related kind of suicides. For instance, you get into a cult that tells you that Jesus is coming back soon, and let's meet him in the air. And the way to meet him in the air is by, just mass killing ourselves, right? And it's a spiritual reason, but ends up being pretty a disastrous situation of suicide out of a religious conviction.
So true, Reverend. And you have done well to mention that this is out of one being in a cult. And we know how cults work, whereby they manage to brainwash people and make them believe things and strongly have inclinations that this is the way I ought to follow, even if it is the way of suicide as we are talking about tonight. And yes, it has happened, whereby people manage to be convinced, brainwashed, and deceived that because, as you have said, Jesus is coming back, then we need to go and meet him before he arrives here. Deceptions that are of all manner and kind. And that happens. And not only that, looking at the days of our lives, whereby we got technology, we have heard of computer games, we have heard of, electronic games whereby someone will follow a game and maybe at some point the game leads this person to commit suicide. It has happened in Kenya. So these are some of the things that happens out there, and we cannot really assume or ignore because they are real. And this is why we want our viewers to be alive to such possibilities.
Yeah. And I think that's bringing us to just understand that like it's really important for us to have measures of handling, especially stressful situations. Look out for manipulative, formations.
Yeah.
And sidestep them. And young people, Reverend Dedan, young people, and today having a really short span of tolerance to many things.
Yeah.
And we see that there's also an increase, of suicide amongst young people, whether they're in college or sometimes even in primary school. They get results that are not pleasing to them or to the parents, and they choose. There's a girlfriend-boyfriend issue, and they choose to take their lives, and it's very prevalent amongst young people. And maybe you can comment about that for the sake of young people just being sensitive about this suicide.
Yeah, that's very true. This issue is very much among the young people, maybe from, as you're saying, as young as 5 years. We've had that on television, in the news. Very young people committing suicide, and you just can't understand why this thing is happening. But it is happening among the young people so much. As we have talked about, the technology that is there today, the cutthroat competition there is, these are things that affect young people. Relationships, we've talked about that. Indoctrination, the teachings that people get. And there are some people even who teach that when you die because of your religion, you go straight to heaven. And they will seek to do that. So these are things that are affecting young people so much because of even the desperation there is and all that kind of a thing. So we need to take special attention to our young people.
Okay.
Yes.
And I know we started on this before, but the Bible. What does the Bible say about suicide?
First of all, Rev, we got people who committed suicide right in the Bible. And let's start with Judas himself, the disciple of Christ. And we know the story, but at the end of the day, he hanged himself. We got people like King Saul. We know what happened, and he decided to, fall on his sword, and he committed suicide. We got people like Samson. We know what happened, and he decided to die with his enemies, and definitely that was suicide. He took his life, because if the Lord gave him the strength to bring down the building, he could have also found a way to save his life. But he wanted to die. He told God, I want to die with these enemies. We got people like Abimelech, when they had gone to this place and a woman hits his head with a stone, and because being a man, as we are saying, he didn't want it to be said that he was killed by a woman, and therefore he tells his servant, please kill me before this hemorrhage kills me. And on, we got so many examples, not only of people who literally ended up committing suicide, but people who attempted or they wanted to die. We know Prophet Elijah, after the contest with the prophets of Baal, he kills 300 of them. But Jezebel follows him and threatens him and tells him, you'll be like one of them. And he tells God, I want to die. I want to die. I want to die. People like Job, they wanted to die. On and on, the list is
Philippian
long.
jailer.
The Philippian jailer. Yeah, after Peter walks out of this prison and this jailer realizes Peter has escaped, he pulls out his sword. He wants to kill himself. He attempted, but he is told no. Peter tells him, I'm here, I'm around, no need to take your life. And yes, it is there in the Bible. And that tells you that for sure, if it is in the Bible, then it is in our society. And therefore, we cannot close our eyes to this. We cannot turn, a blind eye to this reality. We need to talk about it. We need to address it. And as Reverend had said earlier, statistics has it that, like in our country only, no, in the world, in the whole world, they say 4 people die every day as a result of suicide. And you remember when COVID came, statistics, worrying statistics of the number of people who took their lives as a result of the prevailing circumstances which were occasioned by COVID. And even now, as we are living, we know how the economy is, and the Reverend has talked about that. You see, men are really having it not easy, and everyone there, because of the way things are. And therefore, we came here to tell people there is hope. And suicide is not the way out. It is not really the ultimate solution. There's a better way, as we're going to look at.
As you talk about those many characters in the Bible, I must ask Reverend Dedan, because there's sometimes a simplistic view that if you commit suicide, then heaven is a bit far away from you, right? I'm not saying you wouldn't get there, but I'm just saying there's a perception that it's a little more, your chances are reduced of getting there. But yet we find the Bible is pretty silent in terms of where these souls go, right? Maybe your what do you tell your flock?
That's a very interesting way of looking at it. The Bible condemns killing, right? And taking life is killing yourself. And in the church, we teach that if you commit suicide, you are directly on your way to hell, right? But we need to understand what has happened in this whole situation. As we are saying, suicide is a sickness. So I would want to be a little bit sympathetic to the people who commit suicide and not outrightly judge and say they go directly to hell. And again, God is very merciful. God is very gracious. And, you don't know what happens at that last time, You remember the dying thief? He went to heaven. So maybe only God knows where these people go. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Reverend Jeremy, I think it's also good for us to, because especially pastors, and those kinds of, kind of under-treatment of people who have committed suicide, to the extent that they don't support the family. They don't give them as much pastoral support as they would usually, what you can call like other forms of death. Speak to that.
Sure. And Rev, it's not only in the church really, but actually I would say it's in our society, especially in some cultures. And I would even tend to say all cultures, they really are not very kind to the person who commits suicide and even to the family of the person who has committed suicide. We, to some extent, now coming back to the church, we treat the whole event as everybody involved, including the close family members, are guilty, and they like contributed to this. And we even treat the whole church itself like they contributed to it. And come to the day of the burial of this person, you find that sometimes we forget that this is not about the person who is dead. It's about the people who are living, the people who attended this burial. So it should not be centered on the one who died and how they died. It should be centered on, we are here. We came to have a service. We came to hear, to be encouraged, to be given hope, and even maybe to be cautioned. And therefore, you find that, like in some cultures, the one who has committed suicide is not even buried in an honorable manner. There are some cultures who just throw away the body. Other people, there are no rights at all. The person is somehow just thrown in this pit without even a coffin.
Other churches have really short and quick.
Very, very short liturgies for this person. They want to get over and done with this person who decided to take away their lives. But I would say thereby it's important to be sensitive. And I believe it's one of the reasons why we are here tonight.
Okay.
Not really to do a blanket condemnation of the people who commit suicide, but to let people know that, as Rev has put it, it's a sickness that need to be addressed.
Okay.
And just like people die of any other sickness, and we don't treat them any differently, we shouldn't treat people who have died of this sickness we are calling suicide differently.
Now, that you've talked about suicide as a disease,
Yeah.
or as one that comes. It's an outcome of an ailment,
Yeah.
right? And maybe Reverend Dedan, you would want to tell us some of the symptoms or signs that can show that there's a tendency, there's a suicidal tendency here.
Yeah, that's a good question, because many people say, oh, you cannot know someone who wants to commit suicide. But if you're a little bit keen, you will be able to say, according to what I'm observing, according to what I'm saying, I think this person is not going in the right way. So one of the things is someone might talk about it and say they want to commit suicide. In fact, and they could talk it verbally or write it. Like recently, I think yesterday or just this week, I was looking at Facebook, and there was someone who had written, I am planning to commit suicide. What last word would you tell me? Well, many people take it as a joke, but you should not take it as a joke. Some people will talk about it, they'll say it, and we need to take it seriously.
Okay.
I know.
Reverend Dedan,
Yes.
we'll pick it right from there, because it's a short break. We're talking about what are the symptoms or signs that one could probably commit suicide. We'll pick it up from there. Our viewer, this is Spotlight, and we are thankful to the Bible Society of Kenya for bringing us a series that now tonight is engaging this subject of suicide. And do stay with us. This 22232, that's our text message line. And I want to also, as we take this break, think about your own observations. And do you have any question that you would want to ask concerning suicide? And do send them to us. We'll be right back. This is Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live.
Coming up this September, CITAM Springboard Convention 2022, with fresh anointing to radiate God's glory as we reach out to the lost. Mark and save these dates from the 20th to the 24th September 2022 at CITAM Valley Road. The convention is themed Till the Whole World Hears and will definitely revive and uplift your faith. The Bible tells us in Matthew chapter 24 verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached to the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Get ready for the Springboard Convention 2022. You don't want to miss it.
Are you a talented youth between the ages of 18 and 24 years? The RAV. Can you sing? Can you dance? Where Hujafua Mike or any other performances? The RAV. Auditions will take place beginning in Kisumu on the 8th of September, followed by Mombasa, Nakuru, Eldoret, and Nairobi on dates to be communicated. The RAV is a chance to showcase your talent in music, dance, poetry, acrobatics, and more, and stand a chance to win 300,000 shillings, a recording deal at Hope Recording Studios, and many more prizes. To register, send an SMS starting with #The RAV with your name, county, and talent to 22232. That is 222 32 to get an invite to auditions happening near you. For more information, please call 0709 861 223. That is 0709 861 223. Or log on to www.hopemediakenya.org for details. The RAF, identifying talent, inspiring passion. Powered by Hope FM and Hope TV.
Thousands of people throng cities every single day looking for opportunities to make their lives better. They are employees, business owners, or just opportunity seekers desiring to have a breakthrough in their lives. Join me, DM Tanki, as we take this journey from the perspective of different successful entrepreneurs and corporate employees on Occupy Today every Sunday from 8 p.m. exclusively on Hope TV. Look and live.
Viewer, welcome back to Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And we are talking about the subject of suicide. And again, we are thankful to the Bible Society of Kenya for bringing us this series, very insightful. And we want to thank our viewers for engaging us. Thank you, Lois Muna, who is tuned to this program. Thank you for just commenting about this. Susan Diengui, thank you also, saying that you're loving the conversation. Gladys Kebue, who is saying you're following the conversation from home. Then we have Wairimo Maina, who is also glad to be part of this conversation. Thank you, Wairimo Maina. And there's a question here from Susan Diengui, and I would want you, Pastor Jeremy, to talk about this. About men and men wanting to, having the tendency of men committing suicide because they cannot talk. What can be done to help men talk more? That's a question coming from one of our viewers.
Thank you, Rev. And Susan, thank you for asking the question. I think first and foremost, our being here tonight is one of the interventions, and we believe that there are men who are following this conversation, and they will also start, creating spaces where they can openly talk about this. And secondly, it's important for men to know that issues of life are real. And the way to go about handling and responding to challenges that come, especially the way of men who really have more responsibilities, so to speak, and these come in all manner of kind, especially financial and that kind of thing. They need to understand that carrying such burdens all by themselves is definitely not easy. And this is why Christ himself, in Matthew 11:28, he invited us to come to him. And we take our burdens to him, and he promised to give us rest. Therefore, men, let's stop carrying burdens on our own, and as much as we are told we are strong, na mwanaume ni kujikaza, na mambo kama yale, it's important to admit that you can go as far. And God is available to us. He's our refuge and strength, our very present help even in times of need. Let's learn to also go to God in prayer, surrendering to him. And of course, we are here talking about trauma healing. Help is available. Please don't die in silence, my fellow men. Let's talk about what is bothering us. if for sure you feel you are coming to the end of your road and you cannot take any more, you are totally overwhelmed, don't die in silence. Look for someone you can debrief with, you can talk to, you can tell them exactly what is going on. Instead of surrendering and resorting to suicide, thinking that that is the way out, which is not the way out.
All right.
Totally.
Well guided there. Help is available.
Yeah.
Help is available. And before we went for the break, Reverend, we were talking about the symptoms, the signs, and you are already talking about people talking about it. Somebody makes a threat and says, I want to commit suicide. And sometimes we take that for granted, and we shouldn't, right? Maybe a few other things that we can say are signs that somebody may be suicidal.
Okay, thank you very much, Rev. And just to add or to emphasize on what Pastor Jeremy has said about the fact that men, the question from Susan, how can we help men? This issue of men not talking, it's cultural. This is how we have been raised. This is how families, mothers and fathers are raising their boys, telling them. So you see, the boy child has many problems. And we need to talk into that, how we raise our children so that men don't think that they cannot express emotion, they cannot cry. We are taught if a man cries, if a child, a boy cries, they'll be shamed and it will not be taken positively. So we need to show that men, from the stage of boys, it's normal to express emotion, it's normal to cry, and that's why you see that even when men are abused by their wives, they hardly report that. They can't because it is shameful. In fact, there was a politician who said they had been abused and everyone was laughing at that person instead of really understanding that it can happen. So it's just to add that it is cultural. We need to keep on dealing with that culture so that we learn how to express ourselves. And men, dear men, we also need to join groups and churches because men are not in church. And, it is in church and in those groups that people talk about issues. So men need to open up and, become part of, discussions and all that. Instead of just going to drink and all that, let us also be in those groups. So we were talking about those signs, and we have said that a person might talk about it. They'll say, point blank, I want to die, I want to kill myself. I feel like dying. When someone talks about it like that, let's know that, let's take it a little bit seriously and try to, reach out to these people. Give them words of hope. Let them know that they can be helped. Another thing is that someone who wants to commit themselves might start withdrawing from people. They were very regular in church, no longer coming. They don't want to meet up with people, in social places. They don't want to meet with people. I think that's a sign. I'm not saying everyone who wants to stay at home wants to kill themselves. But if this person was so outgoing and suddenly they are not, there are issues they are dealing with. And we just need to reach out to them. Take some time and talk to them. Find out, visit them at home. Why haven't you been in church for the last 2 weeks? That might help. They could be going through very hard things. They don't want to mingle with people. They feel people are irritating them. People are they are not happy in those groups. So that's another thing. Another thing would be this person might start neglecting themselves. Yeah, a good person who's been doing their work well, they start missing job or, they don't care anymore about their appearance. If it's ladies, they were very keen on making up themselves and they are no longer interested in that. That could be a pointer. We need to find out what's happening.
Going on.
Yeah. Is there any way I can help you? So that could be a pointer.
Okay.
Another thing would be when you see someone becoming very generous, they start giving out their things, give you their car, they give you their land, they give you their clothes, for no very good reason. Maybe they are already starting planning to, how they are going to exit. And they want to give out what they have. So you should not just say, thank you, praise God, you've blessed me with whatever it is that you've given me. We need to dig deeper and see whether maybe they are just trying to say, kwaheri. So these are some of the things, yeah.
No, quite insightful there, especially that last one of generosity. You would think that it would be all in the negative, but there's a certain this, you just want to be generous. Would you want to add anything to that, Jeremy?
Maybe Reverend has almost exhausted, but let me add that there are those who will talk about it. They'll come out in the open and they will talk about it. And they'll start saying things like, what's the point of living? And others will say things like, soon you will not have to be bothered about me and what is going on in my life, because they are preparing. When we hear such statements, soon you will not have to worry about me. Soon I will not bother you with my issues. When you hear such statements, that person is saying something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, let me just bring to us a question here from one of our viewers. That is Anne Nelly. And thank you, Nelly, and all our viewers who are engaging in this conversation. Anne Nelly is asking, how do you deal with a child who is full of hatred and is blaming everyone for the failure in their life? Meaning that in that situation, they are saying that if anything bad happens to me, then you are to blame already. How do you deal with that situation, Reverend Jeremy?
It is very possible that this child needs to be helped because the fact that they are expressing that feeling of hate is a sign to really imply that they could be traumatized. They could be dealing with some sort of trauma. Is it possible that this child has been bullied? They have been bullied and therefore their self-esteem has gone so low. Is it possible that they are living in a space where they have witnessed abuse, And could it be possible that this child has gone through an experience that has caused them pain, and maybe that has come with loss of concentration, loss of interest, and probably it has affected their performance, their general performance, at school, not only academic, but even in extracurricular, social life and everything. And therefore, they are not really feeling so good about themselves. And when they see people around them, they have no good feelings. Their moods are not good because they are not really feeling good about themselves. So this child needs to be seen, they need to be listened to, they need to be explored and helped to debrief. There could be issues that this child is processing.
Yeah, which again is a difficult situation because if the person is being blamed already, that if anything happens to me, just know you are to blame. Reverend Dedan, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, quite a tricky situation there. They are blaming. This child needs to be helped to, express themselves and exactly point out what it is that they are going through. And, at Bible Society of Kenya, we have programs to help children to come out and just grow through this situation, because even children have issues. They have problems. That blaming of the parent or the caretaker is an indicator that they are going through issues that need to be solved. So at Bible Society, we have a program for such, and it would be helpful.
Yes. All right. And now that we talk about helping, Reverend Jeremy, maybe you can tell us maybe a few other ways in which you can help a person who clearly or remotely looks suicidal?
Sure. Once it is clearly established that this person is considering suicide, it's important to address that. And number one, let's not fear talking about it. Because sometimes we feel like we will offend the person, we will make them feel like we are judging or condemning them. But let's talk about suicide. We can even create spaces where we will talk about suicide. Even in our own churches, let's create spaces where we can talk about suicide. In our pulpits, let's talk about suicide because it is happening. Number two, let's find ways of listening to this person. We have been saying from the beginning that it is possible. The reason why this person is considering suicide is because they are overwhelmed, they are feeling hopeless and helpless, maybe worthless. Therefore, they need to be helped. They need to be helped. And how are they helped? It is through them finding themselves in a space where they can be listened to. They need to be helped by a trauma healer, and the Bible Society of Kenya has got such available intervention. In addition to that, it's important, Rev, not only to listen to people who are considering suicide, but it is also very important to maybe remove things that they may use to hurt themselves. Maybe in their environment, there are things like knives, ropes, there are even poisons or things like that. It's good to put away such things. And it is also helpful not to leave the person alone. Because the Reverend has told us one of the signs is withdrawal. They want to be left alone. They want to be by themselves. And that is not very safe for a person who is seriously considering suicide. So let's not leave them alone. Let's be present, kind of trigger a conversation, talk about it, and see how this person can be helped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's think about a little bit about the African parent. The African parent, a child will come and say, like you've said, I want to commit suicide. What will the African parent respond?
Here is the rope.
What are you waiting for?
Or I already know where to bury you, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these responses, and people quite end up, it's said, I don't think there's a study that supports that, but it's said that rocks that tendency out of the person because they're told, here is, but maybe, I know we're talking about a very serious subject here, but sometimes that African parent also features in a very interesting way. The Reverend Dedan.
Yeah, I've had this kind of a discussion many times when we are training about trauma healing in churches and in the community. And some people say, oh, well, don't try to pamper this person, trying to tell them, oh, don't commit suicide. Just tell them, go and commit. And some people have said it has worked. It might work, but I don't think that would be the best approach. It wouldn't be. It has worked in those few instances, but the best thing is to do as Reverend Jeremy has said, listen to this person, discuss about it. Don't tell them, just go. When you die, we will come and know where you are home and celebrate. We will eat. No, let's not take it that lightly. They are serious. They want to commit suicide. So talk to them, listen to them, ask them questions. Ask them. There are questions that we ask when we are talking to people who want to commit suicide. And even tell them, try to find out, okay, you have been, so far what has kept you from committing suicide? And they'll tell you, maybe didn't get up an opportunity, I tried and someone was coming. And then you will know how to intervene with it. And even tell them about, can you think about this situation changing? Whatever it is that is causing you to feel like committing suicide. Maybe you don't have a job. Ask them to think, supposing you got a job, how would it be? Supposing this happened, how would it be? And then they'll start thinking and see, oh, Yeah. So there is life after thinking about committing suicide, and you will be able to help them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which also makes us ask, Reverend Jeremy, how do you support a family whose member has committed suicide? Because I'm sure the devastation has its own sharp taste. Let me call it, because when you think about somebody who has died, maybe of what you can call other ways of dying, it would not be the same kind of perception when somebody has committed suicide. So how do you support a family like that?
Thank you, Rev. That's a very important question. And addressing this family that now is not dealing with someone who is, having signs or who is attempting, but someone who has succeeded. They are dead. They are preparing to bury this person. And it is in the public domain that really they died out of suicide. And now, number one, we had talked about how our society looks at a family or even at an individual who has committed suicide. And therefore, we need to appreciate that suicide comes with a lot of shame. And therefore, this family could be feeling lots of that shame. They could be feeling like they are guilty, they are to blame. Maybe they contributed to this person committing suicide. And therefore, the first way is to help this family know they are not to blame. They have nothing to be ashamed of. They didn't contribute. They didn't even suggest it or cause it. And therefore, they don't need really to blame themselves and feel so ashamed. Secondly, Rev, it's important to be present and listen to this family. In trauma healing, we do use 3 listening questions. Let them even answer the 3 listening questions. Let them talk about what happened, that the person maybe ended up committing suicide. How has it made them feel? And what is the hardest part for them? And then number 3, it's important to help the family understand that they don't need to look for reasons, to seek to understand why the person committed suicide. They may never ever end up, with concrete reasons why their loved one committed suicide. And therefore, let them not take that path of seeking to understand why did this person commit suicide. They may never really understand. They may never have the reasons. Therefore, that may not be a healthy path. And therefore, we know it is our practice as Africans to go visit the family. We go with some bread, some milk, and we also go and help around with what could be going on. We'll be present to mourn with the family and pray with them and encourage them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So be there for them.
Be there for the family.
And you've mentioned the aspect of shame. And that's what, Ellen, I would want to ask you. There's some families that, yes, their member has died out of suicide, but they hide. They don't want to say openly because of this stigmatization, the shame that comes with it. What did you want to say about that?
That's very true. It brings those feelings of shame, and maybe in some societies they'll be, put aside, stigmatized. In some churches they will not be allowed to go on with normal activities, because someone from your family committed suicide. So those are things that are there. But we just want to encourage churches to be supportive of families that have committed suicide. Know that, it happens. It can happen to anyone. In fact, recently, maybe not very recently, but I heard of a pastor who committed suicide. So these things happen. So we don't need to really make it feel as if it is so bad. Yeah, so we can help in just helping those families so that they can take it positively.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm asking myself, it's not a good thing when we hear that suicide is on the increase. So it's in the increase. And now the question is, how do we then, Pastor Jeremy, create a culture of life? How do you, in your immediate environment, at home or at church or at your place of work, put in systems or a kind of culture that is supportive of life, that even when people feel like they are suffering, they are overwhelmed, as you said at the beginning, I mean, life is bigger than living it.
Yeah. I think, Rev, I would repeat what I had said earlier. Let's organize forums. Maybe in our churches, in our schools, in our neighborhoods, maybe even at the places of work. Just like Bible Society of Kenya has organized this, and we thank God for Hope TV for allowing us to come, being featured on Spotlight, to create awareness. Let's organize forums where people can really know that suicide is not the way out. Let's help our people appreciate life, the gift of life. And you see, the word of God, if you allow me, Rev, in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 19, this is God who is speaking here. And he says, I am now giving you the choice between life and death, between God's blessings and God's curse. And I call heaven and earth to witness the choice we make. And I love the way that verse concludes. Choose life. We encourage our people to choose life. Let's not choose death. It's not the way out. It's not the solution.
Yeah.
Let's choose life.
All right.
Yeah.
And when it comes to something like parenting and young people, what are some of the things that a parent should do in a way to keep off the children from the option of suicide, and instead maybe create a space at home where young people are expressive about what it is they are feeling? How does a parent do that, Reverend Dayton?
Yeah, thank you. This is something that should start very early in life. And I thank God that many people are doing that, expose these people to church, to Sunday school, so that they can learn to appreciate the good things of life. They can be positive and their character can grow in the right way, so that they minimize interaction with negative situations and people, because children get those ideas from other children, from other people. So maybe if we try to protect these children by, letting them know about God and training them in God, the Bible says, train them up in the way they should go, they will never depart from it. That is the best way. And as Psalms 1 says, people who don't, stay with ungodly, the scornful, and those kinds of people.
Okay. Very, very helpful there, that especially the fact that it has to start early. And we want to again thank Michelle Mwangi for being part of this conversation. Thank you, Gertrude Powers also. Thank you also, Don Mwaruma, for your engagement. And just before we end, Don Mwaruma is asking a question. My question is suicide a spiritual attack from the enemy, that's from the devil, compared to other sicknesses which are believed to be hereditary?
Is it an attack from the enemy? We know, Rev, that the enemy can use all manner of ways.
He comes to kill.
He comes to kill, to steal, and to destroy. And yes, he can, give someone such thoughts that the way out here is taking your life, killing yourself, because that is his mission. He comes to kill. And therefore, we don't want to really move away from that reality that, yes, It can be a spiritual attack. But we have just read the scriptures where we see God himself promote life and he encourages us to choose life.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Reverends and trauma healing facilitators for those insights on suicide. And I like also what you've concluded by saying that God promotes life. God promotes life. God is pro-life, right? And we want to again appreciate very much this conversation. And viewers, thank you for being part of Spotlight this evening. Again, just in case you want to know where to stand, remember that God promotes life. Therefore, in all circumstances, however heavy, drag yourself to the place where life is. Choose life, even when that choice is difficult, because the side of God is a side that promotes life. And God wills life for you. And therefore, just know that even in the most difficult of circumstances, there is still life available. Just reach out. This has been Spotlight. Thank you for watching.